You're listening to KXCR 90.7 FM, Florence, Oregon. I'm your host, Larry Blooomfield, and this is Spiritual Unity Today, where our hope is to show that we're all closer alike than we are apart. Now, join me with my guests and find out their path and how they've got to where they are today. Hello and welcome to Spiritual Unity Today. I'm your host, Larry Blooomfield, and today we have another wonderful call-in guest. It's Fotoula Adrimi, and she is calling in from Scotland, and she's going to share her spiritual path with us today. Fotoula, how are you doing today?
Hello, Larry. I'm doing really well. And I'm so excited to be in your show. And thank you for inviting me and for everybody listening.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your spiritual path. I know it's not always easy for us to talk about ourselves, but when we can share a little bit of a spiritual path, hopefully we can ignite the hearts of others, then maybe share something that will start them on their spiritual path, which I think is a really wonderful thing to do. And with that being said, we'll start to ask the question right now, which is, where in life has spirituality first touched your heart? How's it brought you here today? And where do you see yourself going with that? And hopefully, if we have a little extra time at the end, you could leave us with some extra words of wisdom. We'd be greatly appreciative of that.
So spirituality touched me first as a very young child because I could really feel that we are all connected. I had so much compassion in my heart. I knew intuitively what was going on in other people's lives. Even when people were behaving very unskillfully, I just knew that they had problems at home, and I could see it and I could feel it. And during that time, when I was a child, I was very introvert. I would say, people maybe thought I was a bit weird because I was not what you would call normal. And it was hard for me because I really wanted to make people feel better. I wanted to help people laugh and see the light because I had access to this light. I could see my guides, and I'm not religious. I'm very spiritual, but not religious. But at that time, when I was, a young child, about 6 years old, I could see Mother Mary. She was my spirit guide, you could say. And I had direct communication with her, with angels. I could feel all the love. I could feel the amazing love of the divine that was sustaining me and helping me and directing me and also answering my prayers. I really believed that if I prayed for something, I asked Mother Mary, I asked Jesus, I asked God, I asked the angels, that it would be granted. And it was, because a child has no boundaries. As a teenager, I developed the fears, I developed the separation, and I developed those boundaries and doubts. But as a young child, none of that was there. So I had this incredible power of manifestation where people used to say, how can you be so lucky? How can, your name come out of the raffle every time? And it was because I had this incredible support and love and belief because it was so real for me. And then what happened was also at the age of 6, I had an incredible experience of a past life that I remembered. There was another child who came to our school, and I just knew I knew them from ancient Egypt. And I saw all the past life, what happened there. So that was the first experience of the fact that I had this huge connection with Egypt. And I knew that Egypt was my spiritual home. Even as a child, I used to travel in my dream time or in a shamanic journey, we would call it nowadays. In those days, I would just call it that I would take my awareness and found myself in Egypt because that was my home. That's where my soul felt at home.
Wow.
Yes. And then, as I said, as a teenager, everything changed. The doubts, the fears, that I should not be doing this because my culture was not supportive of that. In Greece, I was told I was doing something wrong because people could not understand it. And therefore, after that, I felt very disconnected. I didn't feel good about my life. I just kept living life, if you like, in an automatic way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was not an experience that was joyful because I was missing what was really me. People tried to say, try and be normal, go to university, go and study, find your life, find a good job. That was what the culture was saying. And that didn't work for me. I
Mm-hmm.
tried. I did have a good job. I did my university work. I went to the Sorbonne and everything, but there was something missing. And then something happened when I became 30. All of a sudden, when I became 30, the floodgates opened and I started to remember. And there were catalysts that, things that came in my way that inspired that opening. And then I started to realize that all that I knew as a child was real. And I had to go back to that. And so what happened to me was that I had my connection again with my spirit guides. This time the goddess Isis from ancient Egypt came and she started teaching me and helping me remember that I had that knowledge of the ancient Egypt and the mystery school, and that I was a teacher at that time.
Wow.
And she gave me a huge amount of material. In 2006, she came and she said, look, this is what you need to remember. And I have folders and folders and folders of teachings. And she said to me, go and teach this now.
Wow.
And I had so much fear. I thought, I didn't doubt Isis. I doubted myself. I said, how can I teach this?
Yeah.
I had done other things like spiritual healing, Reiki, and other things, but these were teachings that were given by masters. I was just me. And so I had so much self-doubt. But what happened during that first year was that Isis was bringing the people. People were meeting me. They saw me in their dreams, and they were coming and saying, I had a dream. I had Goddess Isis come to me in a dream, and she said that you have the knowledge that I need, that you know how I can walk my spiritual path. And I used to say, no, I know nothing. I used to deny it. But after this happened 3 times, I thought I better say yes. And then the whole spiritual path started. And then I created the Isis School of Holistic Health with my colleague, Fitz Sutherland, who I met in Peru, but she's also from Glasgow, and she had a near-death experience there, and I helped her come back into her body after that. So we created something, unique, going back to the ancient mysteries as I remember them from the golden time of ancient Egypt. And at the same time, what happened to me was that I have a shamanic lineage in my family. We don't call it shamanism in Greece because it's not a Greek word. So we didn't have that word, but it's the same principles and similar ceremonies that, other indigenous shamans do nowadays, but we of course do them through our own culture. And that path came and found me as well. So I, by accident, as you say, I went to a ceremony, which was a shamanic ceremony, didn't know why I was there. My friend went there and she said, why don't you come? It's just a 2-hour thing. So I went there, and all of a sudden, everything opened up. I could see so clearly my spirit guides. I could feel the power of the drum. Again, I started remembering, but this time I knew I had to really train. This was so sacred. I had to go to find the people who could train me. So I came to America. I trained with Sandra Ingerman in America. I did Vision Quests in America also. And then I went to the Himalayas. I went to Tibet. I went to Nepal.
Wow.
I studied with the indigenous teachers there. One of my teachers, she's now a good friend of mine, Bola Bastola, a Himalayan shaman from Nepal. And I just found all these pieces, all these pearls of wisdom. And then at the same time, I went back to my family and I said, could you teach me what my ancestors practiced? And it was not very easy for that to happen because this path in Greece is patriarchal, and is basically something that it goes from the father or the grandfather to the firstborn male child. Now, in my family, we are all girls, so so I said to the elders that if you don't share it, it will go.
Yeah.
And we have already lost so much because what happened in Greece, and I'm sure it happens, I can see it now happening in Nepal, by the way, I can see it happening, in other parts of the world. The shamans say the young people are not interested in learning this. They are
Yeah.
interested in the Western style of life. And that happened in Greece in the 60s and 70s when my great grandfather was practicing his art. There were another person in the same village. In other villages, there were other shamans, medicine people who knew and practiced these ways. But then what happened is the young generation of the time said, this is all superstition. This is the illiterate people's magic.
Yeah.
They are illiterate. They don't know. We are now Western people. We are Europeans. We are not following something so old. It has no value. So they rejected. So many of this wisdom was rejected, as it is happening now. The same thing happening now in other countries. And so I had to persuade my elders that I would really love to learn, and they needed to give it to me because my heart was so much in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's my passion. It's absolutely my passion, and the way I live my life is not just something I teach. I live my life. I live a shamanic life as much as I can. I have created a sanctuary around me, and even though I am in the world, I'm not of the world, as they say. I very much live a life based on the respect of all life, and doing and transforming my life to be a life of ceremony as much as I can, and sharing that with other people. So that's what I said to them, and it took them 2 years, and there were a lot of signs. I At first they said, "Oh no, it's unlucky for a woman to do this work." That was, what the great grandfather was saying, and his words were repeated to me many times. But I persevered and prayed to my helping spirits, and they said, just we know what you're saying, and we'll come to you and we'll help you. And after 2 years they said okay. So yeah, so I had quite a journey, and you have to persevere in this journey, because people sometimes say to me, well, if spirit wants me to do this work, why is it not so easy? Why can't it just, they give me everything, just help me out? And I found that the helping spirits do help us out. And actually, one time my helping spirit said, you are only doing like 1-2% of the work. I'm doing the other 98%. So he said, don't worry, you're like a baby. I'm changing your diapers, I'm feeding you. And then what happens is that as you are growing more and more into your spirit, the helping spirits start to give you space to say, well, we can't help you all the time. We can't run your life for you. This is your life. And we will step back. And what do you think should happen? What do you think, you should do? And so I've experienced that, from having total support to having this kind of like, okay, now you go forward. And I still very much see these helping spirits that I work with very closely as my spirit teachers, as my family. They are as close to me as my family. But this is something that I feel is part of us, because we are also a spirit. And at the same time, shamanism has given me the deep roots to really connect to the earth. It's not a spiritual experience that is like up in the clouds. It's very grounded, and really working with the spirit of the earth, the nature spirits, honoring all life. There's a spirit in everything. When I open in ceremony and I start to burn the purification herbs, sometimes mugwort or juniper. I call their spirit because in these plants there is a spirit, and it's the spirit that does the work, as we are all spirits in this body. So, very much my path has been one of soul evolution, because my soul, what was my soul's purpose? Why was my soul here? Was not to talk to spirits and give people messages. I did that initially, and then the spirit said, you're not to do any more readings. And people really wanted readings.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, let's do one more. And this person came, and there was like the worst reading I ever did,
Oh
because my
my.
spirit helpers, they were like, oh, there was just something tiny little thing and everything. And I thought, okay, I get it. I'm not to do this anymore. So what happens is that as you evolve spiritually, in the beginning, I was so clairvoyant, so clairvoyant. I could see so much colors, symbols, everything happening around the room, this helping spirits. And then what happened as I started to evolve, and that's different from being psychic. That is really the opening of the heart, the wisdom of the soul, the compassion, the gratitude, the unconditional love. Then what happened, Larry, was that, during that time, the clairvoyance started to go. And I have met another person that happened to them. He's in his 80s now, a spiritual teacher from Canada. And he talked about that. And I said, that's exactly what happened to me. Most people think, oh, I'm losing my gifts. No, no. You are evolving. If that
Mm.
happens to you, you are really evolving. And your gift is becoming so much more focused, because there's no real benefit from seeing all these colors and energies and the spirits. Is the wisdom, the pearl of wisdom that you need to keep polishing. So that's how I have been actually working all these years. So many things came, many teachings came. One of the things, as I said, at the age of 6, I had my first past life experience, and I realized something, that we live part of ourselves in a past life. In shamanism, we say that when something difficult, traumatic, hard situation happens in our life, part of our light dims, and part of our soul becomes trapped into what happened.
Mm.
And we are kind of running on empty. So when I was working with soul retrieval and I was looking at the past lives, I thought, what happened? What has happened is that people's past is still affecting their future, because the soul is always looking for wholeness. The soul is looking for healing. So what happened in a past life, that this soul part is there, is actually sending us messages in this lifetime and saying, this is why I'm suffering. And is creating situations for us going through the same suffering. So what I ended up doing was to work through my helping spirits, the goddess Isis. She took me to the lords of karma. And the lords of karma, they're not frightening at all. People think, oh my goodness, what are these? I'm going to be judged and told all the wrong things I've done. Not at all. These beings are beings of so much love. And there is such an incredible love in the divine. And these beings are just there to assist us, to help us. Every time I go to them or take my groups to them or my clients to them, these beings say, we are so happy that you are working on yourselves. We are so happy that you come. Not many people come.
Mm.
And the lords of karma explained to me, about the eternity of the soul. So I had these different experiences, and about the need to go into work with our past lives in this holistic way. And that's how I've been teaching this work. That's how I've been practicing it, to really find our soul parts. And then the soul part that has been maybe traumatized in a past life, I take that soul part, and the person has an experience of what it is to cross over into the spirit realm, into being what happens after death.
Mm-hmm.
They had died in the past life. What happens after death? And it's so, so beautiful. so beautiful. You're
Wow.
going back into being yourself. You're going back to being your spirit. And then when you come back into your body, you're bringing that soul part back into this current life. You start to see the bigger picture. You realize there is no point being worried about every little thing, or, you give yourself space. And sometimes I ask people, focus on what really matters. And they say, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I say, you can answer that. You can feel into yourself and answer that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my, you could say, transcendent experiences that I had that really put me onto my path was, I was about 33 at the time. And I was in a workshop, and we were doing this exercise in the workshop where we would call 4 of our helping spirits, and these helping spirits would give us some sort of guidance. So I was there, and somebody would write down what I was seeing, what we were seeing. And I was working with this woman, and I was seeing 4 different people, but one was an old man.
Mm-hmm.
And a really old man. But when I saw him, he said, look into my eyes. And I looked into his eyes, and I saw the whole of the cosmos.
Wow.
I was seeing the nebulas and the galaxies and the planets and all these different forms of life. And then I said, I don't know who this person is, but this is what I'm seeing. And then I moved to the next one and the next one. And then the woman who was writing the information down, she said, could you please go back to the second guy? Mm-hmm. Because when you were there, when you were channeling what you were seeing, it was as if the pages were filled with light. It was like completely, so much like sunlight was coming out of the pages.
Wow.
So she said, can you ask, who is this being? What is the name? So I thought with my mind, it must be one of these ascended masters, that people talk about. I thought that. I said, who are you? Can you give us your name? And I felt so moved because I started crying because the words was, I'm the one you call the Father. Mm. And I'm the one you used to pray as a little girl. I always prayed. I am the one you used to pray at night. And the tears were just flowing through. Mm-hmm. And every time I think about it, I go back into that energy because it was just incredible.
Wow.
And that changed my life. It changed my life. My parents, my friends were saying, don't go so much into the spiritual. Go look, you're a town planner. You have a senior job. You're doing so well. And I said, yeah, but it's not me anymore. And I can't do it anymore. My helping spirits were saying to me after a while, you have to leave your job because we want you to focus on the spiritual work. And I had to do that. And it was difficult. I left the good pension and all the benefits, but I had to leave that so that the information that was coming through and my teaching could be as pure and genuine as possible and not being involved in the conditioning. So in some ways, I withdrew from all of that so that I could really channel and bring the teachings that were coming through, and also understand a bit more about this eternal path that we are here to walk.
Wow. We're speaking with Fotoula Adrimi, and she has been absolutely wonderful in speaking to us about her spiritual path and showing how, all of us have something within us. And when that is awoken, it is an amazing journey. And there's so much that we could, connect into. We're just so pleased that you were able to come on today and share. Now, if somebody was interested in furthering their knowledge about you and your path and all, is there a website or email or something like that they could go to possibly further their understanding?
Yes, absolutely. So, Larry, the school is called the Isis School of Holistic Health because Isis is my helping spirit, goddess Isis from ancient Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Isis School of Holistic Health.com, all one word, and you can go there. There is so much there. So, I have there the ancient Egyptian mysteries, the path of the initiate. It's a path for life. It's a path for soul evolution. All the shamanic work that I do, the shamanic work that I learned, and I'm a teacher with shamanicteachers.com of Sandra Ingerman and the Shamans Directory. But I also brought in the indigenous teachings of my lineage and my ancient spirits. So I also teach the traditional side of shamanism as has come to me from these ancient spirits and my lineage. So that's all there. There is past life regression work that I teach as well. And I teach also the way that I channel the enlightened beings. I'm not working with people who have died. I'm not a psychic medium, but I do the oracle work that is so much more rewarding. You feel, what you're doing is you're giving voice to the enlightened ones. And that is something that I love to share as well. So there's amazing teachings that have come through. One teaching that came through that I've been teaching since 2012 is called the rays of divine consciousness. And the rays are energy fields of coming from the divine heart. And what they're doing is they're putting us back together and realigning us to our spiritual DNA. That is such a beautiful teaching. So people can also go onto the website and subscribe to the newsletter where I share channelings from my helping spirit. I share different words of wisdom. And also, apart from the newsletter, we do energy transmissions, and the energy transmissions and the newsletter are free. So if people would like to receive the energy of the rays of divine consciousness once a month or every week, we do an energy transmission of the healing power of the goddess Isis. That is something that we also do. All the information is there.
Excellent.
And thank you so much. Yeah, you
Absolutely.
can really go.
Well,
There's another thing to say to people in case they like to read, that I have two books out there. One is the shamanic book, the Golden Book of Wisdom, Ancient Spirituality and Shamanism for Golden Times. And it's very, very comprehensive. And then the last book is Sacred Mysticism of Egypt. So that is also an amazing book. That is a transmission of light. If you read it, you will feel the light from the pages.
Very wonderful. Again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your spiritual path, where we like to say we're all leaves of one tree. Thank you for joining me, Larry Blooomfield, and my guest here on Spiritual Unity Today, where we're hoping that you'll find how much closer we all really are alike.